historic aircraft that fly. They are located in wings and squadrons all throughout the United States. And the Inland Empire Wing is obviously the possessors of this C-53D that you'll see, D-Day doll. And Stephen will tell us a little bit about D-Day doll's combat history, but more importantly, he's going to go back to 2019 and a special trip that they took in commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. And so without further ado, let me introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stephen Wilson.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And I'm Steve Rose. I'm privileged and honored to fly the D-Day doll. It's a C-53. It sits outside. Basically, it's a DC-3. They needed so much lift for the Normandy invasion, they just took DC-3s off the line. They put some really comfortable bucket seats in it, painted it green, and sent it to Europe. We came all the way from Riverside, California. One of the shortest flights we ever do. But we got here safely. Some of my guys are here. Brendan Abels, our co-pilot for today. And I've got some guys in the back there, all in the tan suits. So anyway, we're a member of the Commemorative Air Force, based in Riverside, California. We have a nice little museum, not like this, but it's still a nice little one. So please stop by and see it sometime. Go to the next one. Our airplane came off the Santa Monica assembly line at July 6th. So in a couple of days, our airplane turns 79 years old. And it was assigned to the 76th Squadron of the 434th Troop Carrier Group. Next, please. I just throw this up. This is real quick. This is pretty much the invasion of Normandy. It's tough off all the slides, but you can see some of the airplanes as they venture towards Normandy. Our aircraft actually towed the gliders, 2 glider missions, and then a parachute drop, the 101st Airborne, afterwards. We were kind of later on in the day, so not the first wave, but it is a D-Day survivor. Next, please. This is what it looks like. I love this shot. Actually, I think this is taken here at Chino at one of our air shows. The name of the operation was Neptune. It was the airborne event of Overlord, the big one. And there's a guy in England who always jumps over a case. That's all brothers, aircraft that actually led the raid, but they were not the first ones there. 20 airplanes of the Pathfinders went in first. There were some 300 paratroopers called Pathfinders. They're to go in there, secure the landing zone, set up marker beacons and all sorts of other stuff to lead the main force in. And that main force was over 800 aircraft, over 13,000 paratroopers, and like I said, later on, almost 4,000 glider troops landed also. Next, please. After the war, our airplane went through a couple of different airlines and ended up in a jump school. And during some tour in Richmond, Indiana, they blew an engine and left it in the field. The CAF got a hold of it, looked at the history of it, and decided to save it, and we got it. Next, please. Okay. In 2019, well, actually a couple of years before, 2017, we got a call and said, hey, how'd you like to go to Europe in your DC-3? This thing never left Southern California. It was a VFR only, and we're going, yeah, right. But the more we talked about it, they said, well, we can only try. So we went through 2 years of getting the thing set up, new instruments, new paint job, the whole thing to get this thing to go. And I love this shot. This is at Oxford, Connecticut. I call it my moon shot. A bunch of photographers got out there in the morning after rainstorm and got some really cool pictures. Next, please. We'll go through this real quick, but anyway, we had to have the thing painted. It was over at Havilland Airport. West Coast Air Creations painted it for us. John Goldenbaum, for those who know, they provided the paint. Next, please. Okay, before we left, we got the opportunity to be at the Chino Air Show and fly there. I'm going to talk about 4 veterans. We met so many cool veterans this whole trip, but I don't have time to talk about them all. This guy's name is Tom Rice. Last year, he turned 100 years old. We dropped him on the beach in front of the Hotel Del Coronado on his 100th birthday. He was with a tandem jump, but still, it was so cool that we got to do that. Next, please. Okay, we were packed, ready to go. We had every spare part we could possibly think of. Next one, please. One of the cool things we did, we stopped along the country, everybody who gave us support, money-wise or whatever, and had them sign our board. We took this board, we called it the Mission Normandy board, we had them sign it, and that way we got to take everybody with us to Europe. Next, please. And then somebody suggested, hey, just not sponsored, why don't your veterans sign it too? I said, wow, what a great idea. So we started having all our veterans that we gave rides to or just showed up to see the airplane sign our board. Next, please. Okay, this is the second guy I want to talk about, Lieutenant Alfred Pepper. The family got a hold of us and said, hey, if you're going to be in Ohio, can we stop by and see the airplane? I said, sure. This gentleman has over 1,000 hours climbing over the Himalayas, the hump they used to call it, 1,000 hours. And it was a crappy rainy day, and we didn't get to do what we were supposed to do, but I sat him in the cockpit, and he just went away. It's almost I could see him going back to 1942, 45, whatever it is, and dreaming about what he did when he was a young man. It was unbelievable. Unfortunately, we found out that December he passed away, which is but we got to be part of his life, which was great for us. Next, please. Okay, we finally ended up in Oxford, Connecticut. This is where we met up with, so it was a total of 15 airplanes, but only 13 were here at Oxford. Other guys went ahead of us, and Miss Montana was way behind us. Anyway, this is where we joined up with the squadron, got to fly formation, learn how to do it, and a few other fun things. Next, please. Like this. We had a Coast Guard lieutenant with us, helped our pilot, who kept us from drowning. We got to play with our poopy suits. You're supposed to be able to put them on within a couple of minutes. I think it took at least 5. And they're Gumby suits for a reason. There's only 3 fingers in there, so it's impossible to fly an airplane like that. But anyway, next. Okay, next guy. Of all the Pathfinder pilots I just talked about, this is the last surviving Pathfinder pilot. We've got to meet him. We actually met him the year previous in Dallas. But we got to sit with him for a pizza dinner and drink beer and trade war stories. The guy's got more stories than you can possibly imagine. But he turns 100 years old this year. And we're going to try to do something special. He lives in Prescott, Arizona. And he's quite a character. Okay, next, please. One of our first missions was to fly down the Hudson River around the Statue of Liberty. I can't imagine people from New York looking up and seeing 13 DC-3s in formation flying down the Hudson River with T-6s on either side. It must have been an incredible sight. It was incredible for me from this view. Next, please. The Statue of Liberty. Next. Okay, our first stop along the way was in Presque Isle, Maine. Didn't realize it at the time, but Presque Isle is where all the other World War II pilots and crews would stop and refill before they continued on their trip. These people, it wasn't a great day, kind of rainy and overcast. They showed up, like the whole town showed up. And they had banners and flags, and it was kind of almost embarrassing, but they were all lined up, and we went over and talked to them. They were shaking our hand, taking our pictures, and it was very humbling. We hadn't even left the States yet, and yet we're getting that really cool reception. Next. This is our route from Presque Isle. We went up to Goose Bay, Canada. And from there we went to Narsarsuaq, Greenland. From there we went over to Reykjavik, Iceland, and then down to Scotland. Stayed in Scotland for a couple of days, and then we went down to Duxford, where we were based for the Normandy part. Next. This is beautiful Greenland. It's beautiful, but if you ever had an emergency, there is no place to go. It's nothing but rock and ice and a couple of airports. Next. This is the Narsarsuaq. Notice that the ice floe is just north, actually just west of the airport. It's a divert base for airliners if they ever need to go in there. When we landed, we had 40 to 50 knots down the runway. So landing was tough because the airplane is like a glider, it won't come down. And then when you got off, you couldn't get off the runway because all that wind's blowing on the tail. And the hardest thing was for our poor crew chiefs trying to put oil and gasoline in. Everything went horizontal. So, anyway, next, please. Here's beautiful Reykjavik. It was a beautiful place to stop over. And next. Okay, we get to Scotland. You have to have the proverbial photo of the cruise when they finally land where we're supposed to be. And this is our shot right outside of operations in Preston. Wherever it is. Anyway, next. Okay, finally, after a couple days there, we did a couple of shows. People come by and look at the airplanes. We finally go to Duxford. Everybody wants to land in the grass in Duxford, just like World War II fighter pilots. Well, they wouldn't let us at this time. So to the right of that runway is the grass that everybody wants to. It's a bragging right. It's something all pilots want to do. Bill Prosser, I don't know if he's in here right now. Later on in the flight, he had to do it. So good for him. It was on his bucket list. Next. The airport itself, Duxford, is actually a museum. It's not really, they call it an airport. And sometimes it's tough to get in there, but because of what we were doing, they certainly allowed us in there. They have, I don't know, 7 different museums of all different things, including, this is actually the Red Baron's actual engine from the airplane when he got shut down. They actually have his actual engine. Next, please. Behind the American Air Museum is this etched glass of every airplane that was lost during World War II from all the different squadrons. The transports, the bombers, the fighters. It's really, really spectacular. And the Air Museum, too, is really something else. Next. A cool thing, downtown, this is where all the pilots would go after days of shooting down each other and stuff. It's called the Eagle Restaurant. Back in the back restaurant, all the famous names of all the pilots and aces, whatever, are written all over the ceilings and the walls. And also, they claimed that the 2 scientists from Cambridge were there over lunch and came up with the idea of what DNA was on a little paper napkin. Next. Okay, this is what was cool. This is, again, our Pathfinder pilot. His name is, did I say David Hamilton is his name? I'm sorry, I probably forgot to tell you that. He's actually a lieutenant colonel, retired. He's at his old field north Witham in England, in a Jeep. And that's us flying over. They allowed us to honor flying over the top of his head and honoring him. The cool thing is when we got back, of course we didn't see the pictures or anything, but he's actually got his hat off saluting us, which is incredible to have a World War II hero saluting us. We're just flying along. It's called Bill's back there. Anyway, this is Bill's flight. Anyway, it's pretty cool guy. Next. Okay. Because of all the VIPs going to be there on June 6th, we actually did the reenactment on June 5th. And before we actually did the big drop, 5 airplanes actually went over to Cherbourg first and picked up a bunch of jumpers, parachute jumpers, because they want to drop in Carentan first thing in the morning. So we all flew over there, picked these guys up, flew them and dropped them, and then we flew all the way back to Duxford. And the thing was, of course, just typical military. Hurry up, you got to go back, you got to refuel, and you got to go. When we got back, it was 3.5 hour delay. So we didn't have to hurry that much. Next, please. On the way back, we're in formation with another aircraft. Now to the White Cliffs of Dover. Such a cool thing to see. Next. Okay, finally, after 3.5 hours of delay, they finally said, okay, we're ready to go. So these are our troopers that we took. It was actually an English team. They had a couple Americans in there and 1 Greek. The thing is, all these guys prepped. It had to be at least a mile away, and they had to walk with all their equipment out to our airplane. Next, please. Here they are all loaded up and ready to go for our Normandy invasion. Next. Nothing like a Mustang escorting you across the English Channel. This guy, he got great pictures of us. I think we're going to see one next. But that's pretty cool. Of course, he's probably got his speed brakes out and everything, trying to slow down and keep up with us. Next. There, that's a shot from the Mustang. That is one of the coolest shots. I just love this shot. I love it mostly because we're in the foreground. We were in the lead element. And, if we had more time, I would tell you how screwed up this thing got because of the guy leading, but we'll let that go for now. But it was actually like real combat. Things were pretty strange. Next. Okay, when we first on our way inbound, the first thing we see is La Havre in France, first French land that we got to see. Next. Okay, we did our jump, and it was, like I said, it was kind of scrambled up, but we got it done. Then we all ended in Cannes, France, on the rest for the remainder of the D-Day celebration that we did. Next, please. Okay, we had an off day on June 6th, but it turned out that it wasn't an off day. They said, we want you to go fly over the President of the United States. So he lands in Cannes, of all things. We had to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning because they closed all the roads to the airport. And then we sit in a hangar like this, no food, nothing to drink, no nothing, and we can't leave. So we actually pre-flighted the airplanes, come back late. He didn't land until 10:40 in the morning. So once he landed, it was like Le Mans. Everybody had to run out to the airplane and get ready to start. And it's difficult. We got it fired up, went down there, and waited for 45 minutes for our turn to fly over. Okay, next please. So anyway, this is us in line. We're number 3. That's up our nose of the airplane. We got Classic Lassie in the lead, and Castle Brother is number 2. Next. I love this shot. It's very funny though. We're in the first element, we're the farthest airplane away. It's 13 airplanes and a C-130 in the back. Coast Guard C-130 did this. Every other airplane that flew over this thing went right over their heads. We got to fly across their face. The reason for that, I think, is they thought either the airplanes were coming out of the sky because they're so old, or we had oil spilling out of the engines and rolling Melania's nice white dress. It's one of those. I don't know. Anyway, next, please. Okay, so now we're done with that. We're finally ready to go back home, and now what? We can't land. The president's got to come back. So we're circling northern Normandy forever. Finally, somebody told Lee, they said, hey, you're right here by the Pegasus Bridge. Why don't you go fly over? Okay, so he joined us all up, and we flew over the bridge. I had no idea what I was going to see. There was people, thousands of people on the bridge on either side. It was incredible. So we did this cool flyby, came back around, and then we circled and waited. Finally, I don't know how long it was, I said, hey, let's do this again. So we formed up again and did another flyover. And these people, I mean, you can just see, we were fairly low. All legal, of course. Everything was legal. And anyway, we could see they were waving us, waving our hats. I can't imagine those guys on the bridge getting a big flyby of 15 DC-3s. That had to be really something. They didn't even have to pay for it. Next. Okay, as we're going home, this is the American Cemetery from the era. We got little time on the ground to see anything cool. But it's green, it's plush, it's really beautiful. Next. This is Point the Hawk Rapper to get a taste. So he said, man, I got to do something. He goes back, his whole crew chips in all the candy rations that they had. They made parachutes out of napkins or whatever, handkerchiefs, I guess. And next time Andy went over his wings, he started dropping candy out. Well, once everybody heard about that, they all started doing the same thing. And the next thing you know, the whole country, the United States got involved. They would be sending candy to these shipping centers and send it over to be able to do that. We said the funny thing is, kids were calling them up saying, hey, can you fly over my house? They're going to drop candy. Anyway, he just passed away a couple months ago, which is unfortunate. But what a cool guy he was. Next, please. Okay, I won't bore you with going back home except for one thing. We're supposed to stop in Sarsoy, Greenland, on the way home. Well, when we got there, the weather was so low that we couldn't get in. Well, there's not many places to go to. So we're looking at our maps and go, well, there's this one airport called Nuuk on the other side of the island. Well, that's where we're going. I don't think no gas to get anywhere else. So, we had to climb back up over the ice pack, and then found the break in the clothes, we got back down, and then we found the city easily enough, but then we couldn't find the airport. Well, because it's located on top of a hill. It's 3,000 feet, which is fairly short, and on top of a mountain, or hillside. But anyway, it was the only place in sight, so we took it. So anyway, that was a little bit of a deviation we weren't really ready for. Next, please. But what a picturesque place to be. I mean, it turns out it's the capital of Greenland. We didn't know that at the time. But it's spectacular. People spoke English. I mean, we were really at home. We actually had to spend 2 nights there before we were able to come home. Next, please. Okay, on our way home, people will Time Nightingale. He escorted us with a T6, Daniel Latrine and the other T6. He gave us a little escort on the way home as we came into Riverside. Next, please. Just another cool shot of us coming in. Next. And of course, we have to have water cannons as we finish our trip back in Riverside. So I tried to jam 2 months of a trip into 20 minutes. I hope I did that okay. I don't know if you want any questions later, or I don't know what you want to do.
Any questions now?
Anybody? Yeah.
When you crossed over the Atlantic, did you take the same route that they did?
Yes, the same exact route. Louis 1 West, I think, is what they officially called it. I forgot to tell you, our aircraft didn't have heat. It was 31 degrees inside our cockpit. It was pretty chilly.
What elevation when you were going across the Pacific?
We tried to stay about 8,000 feet. Any higher than that, it got really cold. Any lower than that, you kind of need a little few options in case something went wrong. But I can tell you what, when you're over that cold North Atlantic water, you hear every pitch change of that engine, you hear every noise, and, so.
That's good. A hand for Steve, please.
Yeah.
reinforced floors, and the cargo door for just the passenger door. So this was really designed for troop transport and paratroopers versus cargo. They made a boatload of C-47s, and there's almost 1,000 of them still flying today. So they were a rugged aircraft. They came about because in 1934, the United States passed a rule that any passenger aircraft had to have at least 2 engines. And so that meant redesigns. In 1935, Douglas Aircraft came out with the design of the DC-2, which would later become the DC-3. And the DC-3 is what became the C-47. So DC for Douglas Commercial, number 2, number 3, they went into 4, 5, and 6. And then the C-47, the military version, stands for cargo, number 47, and this is cargo 53D. There was an A, a B, a C, and a D variant of the 53. So this aircraft could carry 28 paratroopers, and in this case, I think they're configured now to carry 14 passengers. So they're going to do their startup when we say go, and then we'll do our raffle drawing and take any questions, and then when they come back, we'll snag one of them to answer any questions you have. They're giving rides throughout the day. I believe, though, they're all sold out, but you can check with them over there. All right, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the Douglas Aircraft C-53D from the Commemorative Air Force Inland Empire Wing.